Have you ever felt the invisible forces of darkness pressing against your soul during Lent, despite your best efforts to draw closer to God? The Saint Benedict Medal, that small circle of metal many wear without understanding its true power, holds a secret that Padre Pio urgently warned about, a secret that could transform your entire Lenten journey if properly understood. During these 40 sacred days of spiritual battle, when the veil between the visible and invisible worlds grows thinner, this ancient sacramental takes on a power that few comprehend, becoming either your strongest spiritual ally or a missed opportunity of immense proportions. What you're about to discover about the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent comes directly from the wisdom of Padre Pio, a saint who bore the wounds of Christ and saw beyond our physical reality. This isn't merely about wearing a religious symbol. It's about activating a spiritual weapon precisely when the forces of evil are most determined to derail your path to Easter resurrection. The transformation that awaits those who properly understand and use this medal during the Lenten season has changed thousands of lives, bringing protection where vulnerability once existed, and spiritual victories where defeats once seemed inevitable. Before revealing this powerful teaching that has transformed countless devotees, you must understand something crucial about Padre Pio's warning regarding the Saint Benedict Medal. This holy man, who could read souls and bilocate, recognized that spiritual warfare intensifies dramatically during Lent, the very season when Christ himself was tempted in the desert. The medal, with its ancient prayers and symbols, was designed for exactly such a battle, but its power multiplies exponentially during these 40 days when used with proper intention and understanding. The spiritual current that flows through this sacramental during Lent is unlike any other time of year, creating a connection between your soul and heaven that can fundamentally alter your spiritual journey. The power of the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent operates on 3 essential levels that Padre Pio emphasized throughout his ministry of healing and spiritual direction. First, it becomes a shield of extraordinary strength against demonic influence, not just the dramatic possessions that capture headlines, but the subtle, daily temptations that slowly erode your spiritual foundation. During Lent, as you practice self-denial and face your vulnerabilities, the enemy works overtime to exploit any weakness, any crack in your spiritual armor. The medal, when worn with faith during this season, creates what Padre Pio described as a sacred perimeter around your soul that demonic forces find increasingly difficult to penetrate as Easter approaches. Second, the medal serves as a constant reminder of your baptismal promises, the very promises you will renew at Easter. Each time you touch it, glance at it, or feel its weight against your skin during these 40 days, you're subconsciously reconnecting with these fundamental vows that define your Christian identity. Padre Pio explained that during Lent, this reconnection becomes supernaturally amplified, as if the medal becomes a spiritual conductor, channeling grace directly into your soul. This is why many who faithfully wear the medal during Lent report a profound sense of clarity about their spiritual purpose that seems to emerge from nowhere. It is this baptismal reconnection working at a level deeper than conscious thought. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, the medal becomes what Padre Pio called a magnetic attractor for divine protection during Lent. The specific prayers encoded in the Latin inscriptions on the medal, prayers asking for protection, guidance, and strength, resonate with particular force during this penitential season when heaven bends especially close to hear the prayers of the faithful. As you progress through your Lenten journey of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, the medal serves as a physical anchor for these spiritual practices, amplifying their effect and drawing down protections that would otherwise remain dormant. The medal becomes not just a symbol but a spiritual instrument, playing its part in the symphony of your Lenten devotion. Yet Padre Pio's urgent warning about the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent comes with a crucial caution that many fail to understand until it's too late. Wearing this powerful sacramental without proper reverence or understanding can actually intensify spiritual struggles rather than alleviate them. This happens because the medal doesn't simply repel darkness, it actively confronts it. When you wear the medal during Lent, you are essentially declaring spiritual war on forces that would rather remain hidden and unchallenged. If you're not prepared for this confrontation through prayer and the sacraments, you may find yourself facing spiritual challenges that seem to come from nowhere, not realizing they represent the enemy's desperate counterattack against a threat to its influence. The medal's power during Lent works in direct proportion to your faith and intention. Padre Pio repeatedly emphasized that sacramentals are not magical objects that work automatically, but rather instruments of grace that require your active spiritual participation. During Lent, as you engage in practices of self-denial and spiritual discipline, your soul becomes increasingly sensitive to spiritual realities. The medal serves as a focal point for this heightened awareness, but only if you approach it with genuine faith. Those who wear it as mere jewelry or a good luck charm not only miss its benefits, but may find themselves experiencing what Padre Pio described as a spiritual static, a confused state where grace is available but cannot be properly received. If you believe this teaching about the Saint Benedict Medal can transform your Lenten journey the way it has for thousands of devoted followers, write in the comments, "I am ready for this blessing," and subscribe to the channel for more spiritual insights that can protect your soul in these challenging times. Padre Pio insisted that the medal works most powerfully for those who wear it as part of a comprehensive spiritual practice during Lent. Regular confession, daily prayer, faithful attendance at Mass, and genuine acts of charity. When these practices converge with the wearing of the medal during these 40 sacred days, something remarkable happens. A spiritual synchronicity that creates what the saint called a fortress of faith around the soul. This fortress doesn't just protect, it radiates, becoming a source of strength for others around you who may be struggling through their own Lenten deserts. The history of the Saint Benedict Medal reveals why Padre Pio placed such emphasis on its use during Lent specifically. The medal originated during a time of intense spiritual warfare in the Church, when Saint Benedict himself faced numerous attempts by the enemy to poison him and destroy his work of spiritual renewal. The cross and letters on the medal represent an ancient exorcism formula that Benedict used to overcome these attacks. During Lent, as we commemorate Christ's 40 days in the desert facing the tempter, these same forces of opposition intensify their efforts against faithful souls. The medal, with its concentrated prayers of protection, becomes particularly attuned to this spiritual battlefield, precisely because its origins mirror the very struggle you face during this penitential season. Your experience during Lent with the properly used Saint Benedict Medal typically unfolds in 3 distinct phases that Padre Pio often described to his spiritual children. In the first phase, usually occurring in the early days of Lent, many report a period of unexpected peace, a calm before the storm, as if the medal immediately creates a protective perimeter that pushes back the most obvious spiritual obstacles. The second phase, which often coincides with the middle weeks of Lent, can bring surprising challenges as the enemy recognizes the threat and responds with renewed efforts. This is the crucial period where many abandon the practice, not realizing that these increased struggles actually confirm the medal's effectiveness, not its failure. The third phase, as Easter approaches, brings a profound sense of spiritual clarity and strength for those who persevere, as if the resurrection power begins to flow backward through time from the approaching Easter celebration. Padre Pio explained that the medal works during Lent by activating what he called the memory of grace within your soul. Each time you were present at a Mass, received a blessing, or experienced a moment of divine connection, a spiritual imprint remained within you. The Saint Benedict Medal, with its ancient prayers and symbols, serves as a key that unlocks these stored reservoirs of grace precisely when you need them most, during the spiritual combat of Lent. This is why people who have fallen away from regular practice of their faith often report unexpected emotional responses when they begin wearing the medal during Lent. Long-dormant spiritual memories are suddenly reawakened, creating a hunger for reconciliation and return. The medal becomes not just protection but invitation, calling you deeper into the heart of Lenten transformation. The proper way to use the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent follows 3 essential principles that Padre Pio emphasized throughout his ministry. First, the medal should ideally be blessed by a priest, which infuses it with the Church's authority and connects it to the broader communion of saints. During Lent, this blessing takes on additional significance as the Church's liturgical focus turns specifically to spiritual warfare and conversion. A medal blessed during this season carries a particular intensity, as if the very prayers of blessing resonate more powerfully in the penitential atmosphere. If possible, have your medal blessed after a Lenten Mass, when the priest himself is immersed in the spiritual themes of the season. Second, the medal should be worn with conscious intention, not merely as habitual jewelry. Padre Pio recommended taking a moment each morning of Lent to hold the medal, pray for protection, and recommit to your Lenten practices. This daily ritual of intention activates the medal's spiritual properties in a way that automatic wearing never can. Many who follow this practice report a tangible sense of being enveloped in protection throughout their day, particularly in moments of temptation or spiritual attack. The medal becomes not just an object you wear, but a conscious spiritual partnership you engage with, a silent companion in your Lenten journey. Third, the medal works in concert with, not as a replacement for, the sacramental life of the Church. Padre Pio was emphatic that those who wear the medal during Lent should make special efforts to receive reconciliation early in the season and regularly participate in the Eucharist. The medal serves as an extension of these sacramental graces, not a substitute for them. Think of the sacraments as the primary fortress of your spiritual life, while the medal acts as an advance scout, detecting and repelling threats before they can breach your inner defenses. During Lent, as you intensify your sacramental participation, the medal's effectiveness multiplies accordingly, creating a harmonious system of spiritual protection. The specific protections offered by the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent address the three primary areas of spiritual vulnerability that Padre Pio identified in his counsel to the faithful. First, it creates a barrier against what he called opportunistic temptations, those sudden impulses and thoughts that seem perfectly timed to derail your Lenten commitments just when you're making progress. The medal, with its inscribed prayer, Vade retro Satana, get behind me, Satan, serves as a continuous exorcistic presence that repels these targeted attacks. During Lent, as your spiritual sensitivity increases through fasting and prayer, you may actually become more aware of these repelled temptations, experiencing them not as internal struggles but as external pressures that cannot quite reach you. Second, the medal provides particular protection for your mind during Lent, a time when many experience unusual clarity in prayer, followed by periods of spiritual confusion or fog. Padre Pio explained that this cognitive interference is a common tactic of the enemy during seasons of spiritual growth. The medal, worn with faith during Lent, creates what he described as a sanctuary of thought, where divine inspirations can be more clearly distinguished from counterfeit distractions. Many who faithfully wear the medal during this season report remarkable moments of spiritual insight and direction that arrive with unmistakable clarity, as if directly impressed upon their consciousness from above. Third, and perhaps most importantly for our modern world, the medal offers protection against what Padre Pio called the contagion of worldliness that constantly threatens to infect our Lenten journey. In today's culture, even as you attempt to create a desert experience of simplicity and focus, countless voices compete for your attention, many subtly undermining your spiritual commitments. The medal acts as a kind of spiritual immune system, helping you recognize and reject these worldly intrusions before they can establish themselves in your heart. During Lent, as you deliberately create space for God through sacrifice and prayer, this protective function becomes especially vital, preserving the sacred space you've worked so hard to create. Numerous testimonies confirm the extraordinary effects of properly using the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent, exactly as Padre Pio described. Consider the experience of a woman who had struggled for years with persistent negative thoughts that would intensify during Lent, precisely when she tried to draw closer to God. After beginning to wear a blessed Saint Benedict Medal with proper intention at the start of Lent, she noticed something remarkable. The thoughts still approached but seemed to bounce off before taking root in her mind. By the third week of Lent, she described experiencing a mental clarity and spiritual peace she hadn't known in years. Her testimony echoes what Padre Pio often told his spiritual children. The medal doesn't prevent the battle. It ensures you enter it properly armed. Another powerful testimony comes from a man who had abandoned his faith for decades, but felt inexplicably drawn to return during Lent. A friend gave him a blessed Saint Benedict Medal, explaining Padre Pio's teachings about its significance during this season. Though initially skeptical, he agreed to wear it daily while also attending Sunday Mass throughout Lent. By Holy Week, he found himself drawn to confession for the first time in 30 years, experiencing what he described as a lifetime of spiritual weights falling away at once. What's particularly striking about his testimony is that he hadn't planned to go to confession. He simply found himself walking into the church one afternoon, drawn by what he later described as an invisible hand of mercy that he connected to his faithful wearing of the medal. Families who adopt the practice of using the Saint Benedict Medal together during Lent often report a noticeable transformation in their home environment. One family described how tensions that typically escalated during the stress of Lenten sacrifices instead diminished. They had placed blessed medals over each doorway in their home at the beginning of Lent, while also wearing them personally, creating what Padre Pio called a sanctuary household. The mother noted that disagreements still occurred, but resolved more quickly and with greater charity than usual. More surprisingly, several family members independently reported the same experience. A heightened awareness of when they were about to say something harmful, as if the medal created a moment of spiritual pause before words could cause damage. Padre Pio warned about 3 common mistakes people make with the Saint Benedict Medal during Lent that can diminish or completely negate its spiritual benefits. The first mistake is treating the medal as a passive talisman rather than an active spiritual tool. Simply wearing the medal without engaging your will and faith creates what he called a dormant protection, present but largely ineffective. During Lent especially, the medal requires your conscious cooperation through regular prayer, examination of conscience, and mindfulness of its presence. Those who experience the greatest benefits are those who periodically touch the medal throughout their day, using it as a trigger for brief prayers and recommitment to their Lenten journey. The second mistake is failing to recognize and respond to the increased spiritual sensitivity the medal fosters during Lent. Many people begin wearing the medal and then ignore the subtle spiritual promptings that follow: inspirations to deepen prayer, invitations to reconcile relationships, or gentle nudges toward areas requiring repentance. Padre Pio emphasized that the medal often serves as a spiritual amplifier during Lent, making God's whispers more audible to your soul. If you don't act on these amplified promptings, you create a pattern of resistance that gradually diminishes the medal's effectiveness. The most powerful testimonies come from those who not only wear the medal, but remain attentive and responsive to the increased spiritual communication it facilitates. The third and most serious mistake is using the medal as a substitute for rather than a complement to the sacramental life. Some people, Padre Pio warned, begin to rely so heavily on the medal's protection during Lent that they neglect confession, Mass, and personal prayer, the very channels through which the medal's grace primarily flows. This creates a dangerous spiritual vulnerability masked by false security. The medal works most powerfully for those who understand it as an extension of their sacramental connection to Christ and the Church, not an independent source of protection. During Lent especially, as the Church provides abundant opportunities for sacramental grace, the medal should draw you deeper into these primary encounters. Never replace them. As you approach Holy Week and Easter, the Saint Benedict Medal worn faithfully throughout Lent takes on its final and perhaps most powerful dimension. Padre Pio described this culminating effect as a spiritual momentum that carries forward into the Easter season and beyond. Many who complete the full Lenten journey with the medal report that their Easter experience takes on an unprecedented depth and joy, as if the medal has been gradually preparing their souls for a more complete reception of resurrection grace. The medal, having helped clear away obstacles throughout Lent, now serves as a conduit for the abundant life that Easter promises, turning protection into empowerment. This transition from Lenten protection to Easter empowerment through the medal follows the pattern of Christ's own journey from desert to resurrection. During Lent, the medal helps create your spiritual desert, a protected space where, like Christ, you can confront temptations and emerge stronger. As Easter approaches, its function gradually shifts from defensive to generative, preparing you to receive new life. Padre Pio encouraged the faithful to be especially attentive during Holy Week, as this transformation in the medal's spiritual operation often becomes palpably evident. Many report experiencing what he called anticipatory joy, a profound sense of imminent spiritual breakthrough, even as they complete the final days of Lenten discipline. The culmination of your journey with the Saint Benedict Medal through Lent should be a renewed commitment to spiritual vigilance beyond the Easter celebration. Padre Pio warned that many experience powerful spiritual growth during Lent, only to become complacent after Easter, gradually surrendering the ground they've gained. The medal, worn with continued intention beyond the Lenten season, helps sustain the spiritual strength you've developed. Don't wait for another moment to begin this transformative practice. Whether Lent has just begun, is halfway complete, or nears its end, the power of the Saint Benedict Medal awaits your faithful engagement. This ancient spiritual tool, emphasized by a modern saint who bore Christ's wounds, offers protection precisely when you need it most, not just for a season, but potentially for a lifetime of strengthened faith.